Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Bundesliga Show, brought to you by Over the Bar. Matchday 15 review show incoming. Got a really good show lined up for you, of course, as we've already kind of mentioned on Twitter and everywhere else. We're going to go over another interesting Matchday 15 in terms of our review. Featured four, we've got another very interesting talking point of the week. Probably react a little bit to the European draws and or redraws, of course, that have been going around today. And we've got a brilliant guest as well. We're very pleased to be bringing you in 1 minute's time or so. Of course, this show is brought to you by or in partnership with the brilliant Bundesliga Boxes. I've got my usual Wattenscheid t-shirt on, provided by the guys at Bundesliga Boxes. They're a mystery authentic German t-shirt provider. So go check them out on Twitter or find them on their website. Fantastic company, and we're very happy to be in partnership with them this season. And finally, if you do like this video, please do drop us a like, give that a thumbs up on this video, or indeed any of our kind of content. Comment along. Obviously, if you're watching on Twitter, jump across to YouTube so you can join us properly on the live chat. Get interacting with us tonight if you can do. And obviously, you may have a couple of questions for our guest who is incoming. And of course, please do press the red button and get subscribing to the channel. Righty-ho then. So let's just go straight over to you, Mark, with some scores, and then we'll bring in our guest.
Yeah, so it's been another enjoyable, obviously, week 15. Now we're getting closer and closer to that winter break, aren't we? Which will happen in 2 rounds' time. Actually, we'll talk a bit more about that later on. But yeah, Friday night, we started with a very rare away win for Augsburg in Köln. Yeah, I think that was their first away win of the season, and their first win in round about a year on the road as well. So congratulations to them for that. Yeah, Bayern continued their form with a 2-1 win over Mainz. RB Leipzig, obviously, the first game under Daniel Tedesco, this one ended in a 4-1 win over Gladbach, who are just having a nightmare at the minute, aren't they? Hoffenheim winning the Baden-Württemberg derby 2-1 in Freiburg. Hertha Berlin getting a solid 2-0 win over Arminia Bielefeld. Then we had the new Riviera derby, didn't we? Obviously, with Schalke being relegated this season, Bochum and Dortmund playing out a 1-1 draw. Then, Rory's boys Stuttgart getting a really impressive 2-0 win in Wolfsburg. Their resurgence continues. And then, I didn't think we'd be saying it this season, but Greuther Fürth have won a game of football in the Bundesliga with a 1-0 win, a very impressive 1-0 win over high-flying Union Berlin. Then we ended on a classic, didn't we, with a 5-2 win for Frankfurt over previously on-form Bayer Leverkusen. So, another entertaining weekend of football, and over to Rory to introduce our guest.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get him in without any further delay. So we're very happy to be bringing to you guys. So it's Ed Zelaski. Ed is a Hertha Berlin fan and a co-host on the Hertha Berlin English-speaking podcast, Don't Poke the Bar. So let's bring him in right now. Good evening, Ed. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Yeah, doing very well. Thank you very much. Looking forward to a really good show. Obviously, we'll be covering your boys, Hertha Berlin, at some point during our featured four, of course. So just basically, you pleased with the 2-0 win? Bit of a bounce back for your boys, at least since the head coach change.
No, absolutely. I think, let alone the result, which obviously the 3 points were huge given what the table is like and how everybody below us seems to keep winning. So, I mean, it really has been a must win every single week. But we just played well. I thought we were the better team throughout the match. I don't think Bielefeld even had a shot on target, and we'll go into more of that later. But I think we've really seen an improvement the past 2 matches ever since Dardai left.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. Well, we'll come across Hertha at some point during the OTB's featured four. So, Mark, over to you. Let's start the countdown.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously we're back to a feature four. Obviously last week the games were so good that we went to a featured five for I think the first time ever. But yeah, I mean this week was still entertaining, but we're back down to a featured four this week. So yeah, where better place to start really than, I mean, it was that miracle victory, wasn't it? I mean, I think none of us predicted this result. I think I predicted 3-1 to Union Berlin. But yeah, it was, I would say, a famous win really for Greuther Fürth over Union Berlin. I mean, Ed, did you see this one coming, really, or were you surprised about the result?
I was shocked. I shouldn't. Fürth played decently well against us, and I mean, honestly, they took the lead. So I'm never going to complain when I see Union lose, but I didn't think Fürth stood a chance at all.
Yeah, I totally agree. Oh, yeah, go on, over to you, Rory.
Yeah, sorry, no, I was just going to say, yeah, it was an interesting game, and obviously on the face of it, a gritty 1-0 win isn't necessarily a game that would always feature in our featured four, is it? But I think it is purely for a bit of nostalgia and kind of that sense of finally them getting over the mark, the fact that they did get the win. I think obviously a lot was owed to a couple of things. Firstly, the fact that Union maybe took them lightly. They rested Taiwo Awonyi, obviously from their exploits in the Europa Conference League, which obviously will now no longer be a problem, as they'll be able to refocus their attentions. And then the performance of the goalkeeper. So Sasa Burkhardt, who came in for, I forget his first name, but Funk, the goalkeeper, and he'd been having a bit of a stinker, so to speak. So, Ed, do you think there was a bit of a sense of underestimating Fürth from the Union Berlin point of view, and then B, do you think the goalkeeper did a good job?
Well, so Sasha is actually a Hertha kid as well. So he came up through Hertha's academy, played, I think he made a few appearances for the first team, played a lot for the second team. So it was nice to see him come in and make, I think it was 6 saves in the match. And he played well. I mean, it was a match Union dominated the ball, had a lot of, I mean, they had 6 shots on target.
Mm-hmm.
I think they took them lightly. I don't think you can say that. They clearly did not look as sharp as you would expect. Maybe it's the continental hangover. They're a little bit disappointed from going out in the Europa League, but whatever it was, it did not look like they were prepared for that kind of fight.
Mm-hmm. And Ed, what do Fürth need to do to back this up, and can they basically?
I would say no. I don't. They're just not good. And I think when you saw them get promoted, they're clearly the weakest team in the league. Mm-hmm. I don't think there really was much that they could do, and I don't think you can make changes enough that would really give them a realistic chance at staying up. They're so far adrift at this point that really, it's more of just consolidating, try not to embarrass yourselves, and regroup next year. You know, you got this bonus year of playing in the top division, you get the money. I really don't see what they can do. They're a smaller club. They're not one of the big boys. So to even get to the Bundesliga, I think for them is a great accomplishment, but I don't see anything that they could do. You know, they weren't even that great against Union. Union was still the better team. They just couldn't take their chances.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was an absolute horror story for your obviously rival team Union Berlin. I mean, it would have been a long trip back up to Berlin after that one for them. That's for sure. I mean, obviously going out of the Conference League, as you mentioned before, on Thursday night. I mean, you know, they probably didn't quite do enough to win that game against Slavia Prague either. But I mean, this was an absolute horror show of a performance for me, really. I mean, Union Fürth conceded 13 goals in the previous 2 league games against obviously Hoffenheim. Yeah, I mean, that's actually their first ever win at home in the Bundesliga, incredibly as well. Like the last season they played, they didn't win any games at home in their 17 matches. And I think this was their 8th match at home. So that's the first win in 25 games at home in the Bundesliga. So yeah, I mean, their fans are, I mean, I live kind of near to Fürth as well, and their fans are really, really celebrating, trust me, you know. I mean, it's like winning the cup for them pretty much. So yeah, congratulations to Fürth, but, you know, work to be done for Union Berlin after that one, because it was a real horror show for them. As you say, Ed, they were the better side, but I mean, failing to score past this Fürth side it's a catastrophe really for any team, let's be honest. And yeah, obviously Union are the first victims of the mighty Greuther Fürth this year, and let's see if there'll be any others, maybe starting with Dortmund this Wednesday night. Who knows?
Possible.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Okay, yeah, so let's move on, yeah, obviously to one of the big games we're going to cover this week. Obviously, Ed's team, Hertha Berlin. Yeah, I think you mentioned before, Ed, that it was a really, really good performance from the Berlin side. I mean, I would totally agree, you know. I mean, obviously, it was a game that was only 1-0 until the 95th minute when, obviously, Selke got a very, very rare goal for him, actually. But, yeah, obviously, he put the game beyond doubt. But what do you want to go into a bit more detail? What did you like about this performance from Hertha?
Well, it was really, it's been a change. So in both eras under Paul Dardai, in theory, we're supposed to be a very solid defense first kind of team, which I realize kind of goes against what the club was supposed to be after Lars Ventorst invested all of his millions. We were supposed to be, you know, a big city club, for better or for worse. So really, for most of the season, we've just been anemic in attack and porous in defense. We didn't see any of that on Saturday. It was just a completely different performance. We were on the front foot, I would say, almost the entire match. We had, I think, about 60% of the possession. Our passing was good. We're using a 4-4-2, so you're seeing kind of that interplay between Belfodil and Stefan Jovetic. And Jovetic, you're really starting to see what he can bring. This is the first time he's really been fit since he joined the club. He had COVID, he's been hurt. And now I think you're just reaping those benefits. Suat Serdar was back, who we very badly missed against Stuttgart. He's just, for me, he's been our player of the season so far.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just nice to see us playing positively and not going into a match expecting to be second best and try to just nick a winner. We went out and, it probably should have been more than, we should have scored another goal before the 95th minute. I know it's just off Piątek, a couple of decent chances that he missed. But this was still a change that, one, we didn't concede any goals, and two, we actually looked the better team, and we really backed that up and looked solid. I think they had one chance. It was Yanni Serra, who I think went just wide. No, it was Kruger.
Yeah,
who went just wide. But other than that, we didn't have that much work to do defensively. We were just, the better team, and we deserved to win.
Yeah, I think you very, very much spot on the ball there with regards to the performance, Ed. Obviously, one disallowed goal before that in the shape of Jovetic being just offside. A goal-saving clearance off the line as well at one point in the first half as well. So, yeah, very easily could have been 4-0 or more. So that wouldn't have it wouldn't have been undeserved. It's the word that I'm looking for. And defensively, you look a lot stronger. Would you say that one big part of maybe the defence now looking a bit more secure is the return of captain on the day, at least on Saturday, in the shape of Derek Boyata? Obviously, I'm not sure how often he's been available this season. I may have missed some of obviously Hertha's games, but I'm fairly sure he's not been around much.
No, he's been hurt. I'm not the biggest Boyata fan. I've watched him for years playing with Celtic. And I think he's still the same type of player for us that he was at Celtic, where he still makes the same mistakes, but you could get away with it in Scotland because, I think the Scottish League is fine, but you have more clinical strikers in the Bundesliga. You would expect to have that, so you get punished more. I think it really helped to see more of a system, and it feels like Korkut is putting more trust in the players to play to their abilities where they're not feeling constrained. And I think you've seen some of that with what he touched upon in the press conference earlier today, he being Korkut. No, Boyata was fantastic. And I mean, with the defense, there are reports coming from Sky today that Marc-Oliver Kempf is going to be joining Hertha at the end of the season on a free transfer. I guess you would say that would probably mean either Niklas Stark or Jordan Torunariga is leaving. Stark, I know, has been linked with West Ham and some other English clubs. Torunariga just can never stay hurt. But that's, to the Boyata point, we haven't had players stay fit. Martin Dardai would probably be another one who would start in the center of defense, but he's hurt as well with another muscle injury.
Yeah, indeed. Very interesting stuff. So what does the future style of play maybe look like under the new incumbent head coach then, compared to what we saw with Paul Dardai? And what do you think the ambitions of the club for the rest of the season are now going to be?
Get out of the relegation scrap fight. I think that really has to be the goal. For years and years and years, I've wanted us to just establish ourselves as a solid top half team. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot gets thrown around with the amount of money that Lars Windhorst has invested. That's not all been spent on players. I know people like to say the 375 million euro. Not all of that has gone to players. A lot of it went into the actual club and maintaining the club during the pandemic. So, yes, you've seen money wasted. I think buying Krzysztof Piątek was a waste. Buying Dodi Lukebakio for 20 million euros, that's pretty much been a waste. I don't know, maybe he'll show at Wolfsburg that he's worth it. But I really just want to see, I think it's a very uneven squad, but we still have, on paper, the skill and the quality to be 8th or 9th. And that's where I think we should be, and use that to build and challenge for a European spot next season.
Yeah, for sure. What kind of things do you think have actually held the club back? Because I mean, here in Germany, like I'm based in Germany, like everyone's kind of been expecting Hertha to kind of, like go to the next level. I mean, if you look at some of the players on your roster now, you've got some great players. Like the likes of Piątek came in with really, really big expectations. I mean, look at the likes of Lucas Toussaint. He's even on the kind of Brazil roster in the under 23s age. And they just don't seem to do it a lot of the time for Hertha. Like, do you think there could be some kind of problem within the club, or is it just a case of like players maybe joining as like just for the money, basically, in some cases? Do you think
it's absolutely been the club? There hasn't been a clear structure, and I've said this on our podcast on Don't Poke the Bear, that you need to have some sort of plan. So that's what Freddie Bobic has been brought in to do. And there had been some tension reported earlier in the season between Bobic and Dardai. I think you've kind of seen that. And now Korkut he's supposed to be here to the end of the season, and then we go after who we want to get. I know there are dreams about getting Niko Kovac. Whether that's realistic, I don't know. I don't know why. I think we also need to be realistic, but it's been mismanagement. It's just been mismanagement across the board. I know what it's been like just interacting with Hertha, and there's just no communication. There aren't systems. They aren't prepared to really be a modern football club. They came over to the U.S., and we have an official fan club in North America. They played, I think it was Frankfurt. If you looked at what Frankfurt had at the game in it was Orlando or Tampa, they actually had a fan booth out there, and they were engaging with their American fans. Hertha had nothing. They didn't communicate with us at all. So I think that's just emblematic of how we've been run.
Yeah, all very interesting stuff there, Ed. So speaking of how obviously Hertha didn't really engage with US fans over in the US, so how has your engagement or how has your following with Hertha actually began? Where did the foundations of it start?
So it started, my mom lived in Germany, so I'd always been interested in the Bundesliga. It was hard growing up in the US to get a lot of Bundesliga coverage. Actually, the team that got me into the sport in the 90s was Manchester United, and Andy Cole was my favorite player.
Great team.
And then I got FIFA 2000, and I ended up playing. I was interested in the Bundesliga, and so I liked Stuttgart as well because the company that my dad had worked for would do business with Mercedes-Benz.
Mm-hmm.
But I also just thought Berlin was a neat city, and I started playing as Hertha, and they were a pretty good team in that game. That was the year Hertha went to the Champions League, so you still had a lot of those, really good players. Michael Preetz, even though he was a relatively terrible director of football, he was a very good striker for us. So that did it. Then I studied at the University of Leipzig as well as part of, they had a sister program with the American university that I went to. So I actually was then there for Hertha's title push in the 2008-2009 season. And I got to see us beat Bochum 2-0 in front of an essentially sold out Olympia Stadion. And it was just, it was fantastic. The atmosphere was incredible.
That's very cool. Speaking of the home stadium, Ed, what do you reckon to it in terms of what some people say? It's maybe a stadium that's too big for the club, or the fact that the fans can be a bit of a kind of a dominating kind of figure on top of the players, and sometimes that's why the players fall victim to the pressure and things like that.
You can tell that it is not a true football stadium. You still are far away. The sight lines aren't bad, but with the track, and ultimately it is too big for Hertha. So yes, there are times where we can get 73,000, but we're a team that averages, in the 50,000s, and we still feel like we're playing in a half-empty stadium. So the goal would have to be to build something where you're closer to the pitch, where it's a little more intimate. You have I think more of a home atmosphere no matter what.
Good stuff. Right, before we move on to our next game, just briefly, Ed, we'd like to put our guests on the spot with regards to their team. So very quickly, where do you reckon Hertha will finish at the end of the season? And then just afterwards, if you want to plug in your podcast as well, just before we move on.
So I will say we finish 12th. I think we will be safe of relegation. Everything is so tight right now that I could easily see us. I mean, Mainz are in 8th, and they're 3 points ahead of us.
Sure.
So I think we'll be 12th. I think we'll be safe. I don't think we'll go into the last couple of matches fearing relegation, but we're not going to really challenge anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the podcast. So it's Joe and myself. He actually lives in Ohio as well, but he is in the southwest corner of the state. We've gotten a little slow with it. We've both been really busy at work. He works for one of the state soccer associations here in the U.S. I'm an attorney. But it's usually we go every other week and we talk about everything Hertha. I guess it's just a nice way for us to vent and get it off our chest because it's quite stressful. And I will say, I saw some of the comments about Marc-Oliver Kempf that just broke today. Hertha base has had, they've been the ones kind of covering that. Bild reported on the interest prior to us playing Stuttgart, and now Sky is saying that it's essentially a done deal.
Wow. Well, yeah, that's brilliant business for you boys. That makes me very sad, I must admit, because he's a brilliant player for us. So I'll be watching that with interest in the next few days. Well, that's brilliant stuff. Thanks, Ed, for going into a bit more detail on Hertha and kind of discussing your association with them. Make sure you go onto Twitter and check out the podcast. You can follow them and, of course, Ed on Twitter as well. And we'll got all those details on our Twitter in our promo tweets and everything else. So let's move on then with the rest of the top 4 games.
Yeah, for sure. Just before we do that, Gary Jones, I think our biggest Bielefeld fan, we just want to get the other side as well on there. I think, obviously one of our fans back in the UK, it says, shame for Bielefeld. I like their style of play. Hope they stay up. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously they have had a difficult season, Bielefeld. Obviously 10 points from 15 games is not really a very good total, really, is it? Obviously, last season they did amazingly well, really, to stay up. Like, I think everyone had them down as favourites, really, almost to be like the Greuther Fürth of this season, really. Most people thought they weren't really prepared for the Bundesliga, but they did really well to stay up. But obviously, despite a few good signs like Robin Hack, Yanni Serra, Kruger as well, they've not really quite done it. I do question Frank Kramer's team selection at times, really. I mean, we know that Fabian Klos has not really done it at times in the Bundesliga, and yet he seems to start every game pretty much at the moment. Rory, do you have any thoughts on that? Would you drop Klos, or do you think he's right to keep starting him?
But I mean, based on the player that I had seen playing for Holstein Kiel in the shape of Yanni Serra, I thought he was a player made for Bielefeld. I thought he was a really good signing. But that's not kind of translated into the Bundesliga either. He's had chances, but he's not had a long run of games for Bielefeld. So maybe if they back him as a player, that would be something interesting. The reason why Klose starts so many games is that he's so long associated with the club and they know what they're going to get from him. So that is often obviously why they'll do so. But that's obviously, he is not a goal scorer. So that is obviously the problem.
Yeah, for sure. And then another comment from Patriotic Irish BVB, one of our regulars. Yeah, he says, that's what German clubs thrive off. Good compact atmospheres, a bit similar to West Ham's move to the Olympic Stadium. Yeah, I guess that's a good point, really. I've also been there as well, actually, to the Olympiastadion. And I think one thing a lot of people don't realize is that Hertha get really, really big crowds, as Ed said before. I mean, for any other team, 50-odd thousand is a really good total. But the stadium is so big and vast, and it still looked half empty, even with like 55, 56K in the stadium. Mm-hmm. And I guess, although it is a historic stadium, it's got a really, really big history within German football. I guess maybe a move to a smaller stadium might be an interesting idea further down the line. But I don't know if that's really in the pipeline at the moment, but it would be an interesting idea. Yeah. Ed, do you know anything? Do you think they plan on perhaps in the future moving to a smaller ground, more compact, or...
That's been the goal for a while now, and there's been a lot of push to build a stadium. I know the main goal right now is to build on the Olympic grounds. So it would essentially be, right across the field from the Olympiastadion. I mean, that's not even our home stadium. Hertha, we used to have our own stadium back in the 60s, but it was sold off. And then we've played at the various Berlin grounds. So it absolutely is a priority. It's just getting through Berlin politics. And I mean, if you've seen how long it took the city to build an airport, you would know what our chances. But that is absolutely it's a priority for the club, building our own stadium.
Good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, before we move on, let's get through a few more comments that have come in from another regular, Dan Green. Hope you're doing well, Dan. Dan's asked, do you think there will be much business in the winter transfer window for German clubs? I mean, off the back of what I've seen so far this season, I think there's quite a lot of clubs that could do some interesting business in this winter kind of transfer periods. And Dan has kind of added as an add-on, which clubs do you think will be the busiest? Ed, we'll start with your club, obviously, who you've already kind of mentioned one name that unfortunately looks like he's going out from Stuttgart. Any other names that have been linked with your boys?
Ooh, I haven't seen as many names. There are always a lot of names that are linked. I think you are going to see moves for a winger, and I would expect to see players leave, and I would expect to see we have too many players in some positions and not enough in others. We have absolutely no depth on the wings. So I know that has been a priority for Freddie Bobic, is getting some wingers and probably a more creative midfielder. I haven't seen many names linked, at least not for midseason. And the same with Kempf, is that he would come at the end of the season when he's out of contract. So we'll see. But honestly, it wouldn't surprise me to see somebody like a Krzysztof Piątek move on, just because it hasn't worked out. I've wanted him to do very, very well. I am also of Polish descent, and he was never that great of a player in the Ekstraklasa. Obviously, he was good enough to get a move to Italy, where he just exploded in a way I don't think anybody expected him to. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him leave, but I would expect Hertha to make some moves this window.
Yeah, I think one other club that we can maybe see being fairly busy in the market is maybe Dortmund. I think they so badly need to prioritise the defensive area of the pitch. They've been kind of linked to a number of high-class defenders, and I think that would make sense to go out and do it. For example, someone who seems to have down tools at his current club, Lacroix, who's obviously got the calibre. I think that is a transfer that would make sense to me. Mark, who do you think in terms of Bundesliga teams needs to make a couple of moves in this window then?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are a few teams that are struggling from the kind of big boys, I mean, obviously Wolfsburg, but I think for Wolfsburg, it's more a case of just poor management choices, really, than anything, I mean, we've talked before about, Van Bommel was an error for me, and then Kohlfeldt was perhaps even bigger of an error, to be honest with you. I mean, I still can't get my head around the fact that he coached Wolfsburg, do you know what I mean, after the disastrous stint of Werder Bremen, really. Also, I think the likes of Leipzig, for them, it's not about signing more players. It's about getting the most out of the current squad, basically, because they have some really, really damn good players in that squad. And some players just haven't been playing well under Jesse Marsch, obviously. But I think Tedesco, I mean, we'll talk about that in a minute because I thought they were really, really good. That was probably their best performance of the season for RB Leipzig. And I think, for me, for a lot of clubs, also Gladbach as well, I mean, they've also got a strong squad. But currently, Adi Hütter is just not getting the best out of that squad. And I think there's a lot of Bundesliga teams that have like really good squads at the moment, but they're just not really maximising them. And probably Leipzig and Gladbach are probably the two biggest culprits for that at the minute, really. Yeah,
good stuff. Let's move on. A couple more questions coming in. So over to Mateo's question. Evening, Mateo. Bit of reaction then to the Champions League and Europa League draws. As we said, we would get through that. So it's very apt that you've asked the question, Mateo. Obviously, from a Bundesliga point of view, the Champions League draw, unfortunately, there was only one team involved in it, and Bayern have obviously got a fairly appealing draw, so thoroughly expect them to go flying through in that regard and come out into the quarterfinals and well beyond that. Any other games jump out to you, Ed? Have you seen the Champions League draw today or the redraws?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously PSG Real Madrid would have to be, I mean, just for the spectacle. I guess I'm not a big Champions League fan because, well, maybe it's because my club is never in the Champions League and I just think it gets tired seeing the same teams over and over again. But no, I think PSG Real Madrid will be absolutely fantastic. I am curious to see Bayern and Salzburg. Salzburg just, I think, plays very exciting kind of, football. They've arguably been better than their supposed, sister team in Leipzig. If Leipzig is supposed to be Red Bull's, top priority, I think Salzburg has done even better.
Absolutely agree. And then Europa League interest. So I think they only drew the playoff rounds for I'm still not getting all the different rules and regs, so they're doing that at the moment. But so we saw that Dortmund drew Rangers. So that looks like a really interesting. Oh, sorry, Celtic, not Rangers. I think that's right, actually.
No, it was Rangers. Yeah,
it was Rangers. I'm confusing myself. Apologies. But that's, a very interesting game. And Leipzig, who did Leipzig get? They drew Sociedad. Yeah, interesting game that as well. Sociedad, or my boys, Man United, played them in recent times, and they've got, obviously, capabilities. I'd expect both German teams to come through that. And I think that we could see a very strong push from the Bundesliga, particularly in the Europa, because we could well see 4 teams going fully at it with Frankfurt and Leverkusen to come. So that's very interesting as well. Just seeing if there are any more comments or questions that we've got. Ben Morris, evening Ben, hope you're doing well. What do you make of the comments regarding Haaland today? Sounds like he's going to Man City in the summer. Mark, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it has been quite talked about over in the German media, but yeah, I think to be honest, it's not really such a big surprise in all honesty, really. I mean, we all we know Dortmund's policy, they sell a superstar every season. Last season it was Sancho, this season it'll probably be Haaland, and then the year after probably Bellingham, let's be honest. Unfortunately, that's just the way it goes really for Dortmund. I mean, obviously Patriotic Irish, you'll probably give us a bit more clarity on that, but yeah. I mean, I think he'd be a great signing for City. I think he'd be a great signing for any club, let's be honest. I mean, the guy, he's still only 20, 21, and he's already one of the best number 9s in the world. So I think, yeah, it'd be a great signing for City. I'm surprised they didn't go in a little bit harder for him last season as well, but it seems as though Dortmund obviously just said no. Like, obviously, they sold Sancho for big money, so... But yeah, I mean, I think he will be a great signing for any Premier League club that wants to take him. But I mean, obviously, personally, I'd like to see him stay in the Bundesliga. I mean, I'm an English guy, but I mean, my team, Wigan, is far from being like anywhere near the top of the Premier League. So yeah, for me, I'd rather see him stay here in the Bundesliga, to be honest. But.
Absolutely. Right. Well, I think that's all the questions that have come in so far. If we get any more, obviously, we'll go through them in due course. But let's try and finish off the featured four fairly quick fashion. Yeah. So, Mark, over to you to carry on.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to finish with two really, really good, two like Bundesliga classics, really, classic attacking games of football, which we love to see at this level. So yeah, the first one, RB Leipzig, obviously thrashing Gladbach 4-1. Obviously, the big talking point was the fact that Jesse Marsch got fired. We talked about that last Monday. And then obviously we now know that Daniel Tedesco, formerly of Schalke, obviously is biggest experience. Obviously, he came from Spartak Moscow as well, where he spent a couple of years. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's a good appointment, and I think this was a really, really good performance as well from RB Leipzig. Ed, do you have any more comments on the appointment of Tedesco?
So I actually was kind of on the opposite side. I didn't get his appointment. I didn't think he was particularly good at Spartak Moscow. I thought he was a really up-and-coming manager when he went to Schalke. Obviously, he did well at Erzgebirge Aue. Aue are just, little team in the mountains.
Yeah.
And he had earned his spot, but I guess this is where you are looking at Leipzig as more of the philosophy of the club. So I guess it makes sense when you look at the bigger picture of how the club operates, but just on its face, I was confused. I liked Jesse Marsch. I thought he deserved a little bit more of a chance, but things clearly weren't working. And they showed up on the weekend, and they were just clearly the better team. They probably could have scored more than 4.
Yeah, I think Gladbach were ideal opposition at the moment. They're ideal opposition for everyone, aren't they? Leaky as anything. To say that it could have been the same scoreline at halftime in the Freiburg game wouldn't be an underestimation of how well RB played. Maybe a highlights reel or a kind of nice summary as to why things maybe didn't work out for Jesse Marsch was the performance of Andre Silva. Firing Andre Silva in that game gets 3 or more goals. I'm certain of it. He missed an open goal effectively after a mistake from Jan Sommer, and Cuckoo tees him up and he hits the bar. But yeah, overall, in terms of the game itself, some more set piece headaches for Gladbach. Obviously, RB's first one, nice ball in from Forsberg for the Cavadio header, and there's some more trouble that was caused throughout the game. So a lot to work on for Gladbach. Ed, do you think we'll see Adi Hutter staying in a job for much longer, or do you think he'll be the next casualty?
I think he's going to have to be. Something has just gone wrong. I mean, Gladbach they're not that bad of a team. They should be a very solid top 6 team. Mm-hmm. I don't know what's gone wrong. I think it's kind of funny with Luka Netz going there, leaving Hertha, going there because he would get more playing time. And then, he didn't get off the bench this week again. So I do get a little bit of joy out of that. But no, Adi Hutter's days they're numbered. Gladbach shouldn't be fighting relegation.
Yeah, well, it seems that there's still this hangover potentially after the Marco Rosa debacle, and let's face it, it's caused loads of teams headaches because of the domino effect that happened as a result of that managerial transfer move. The merry-go-round that ensued, and it's not benefited many clubs, has it really? So that's been a bit of a kind of a backlash as to what's happened so far this season. But yeah, very good win for RB. Can they now back it up? That'll be interesting to see. Yeah, should go on to game number 1 then?
Yeah, for sure. And talking of teams, you mentioned that famous merry-go-round with the managers at the end of the back end of last season. But I mean, one team that are now starting to bear the fruits of that managerial change are the team that Adi Hütter obviously left, and that is Eintracht Frankfurt. I mean, obviously Glasner, he started off atrociously, didn't he? I mean, he couldn't buy a win for the first, 10 games? But now he's on a run of 4 wins out of 5, and this was a brilliant performance from Frankfurt, you know. I just thought they were absolutely outstanding in this game of football. Obviously, the key point is the fact that Leverkusen went 2-0 up in no time, really. You know, within 20 minutes? We know that Bayer Leverkusen, they like to fly out of the blocks in games, don't they? And they often get early goals. And obviously, they went 2-0 up through that man, Patrick Schick, who, for me, has been one of the best players in the Bundesliga this year. I think he's having an absolute stormer of a season. And he took it at the time, I think it was 6 goals in 110 minutes of football. Because obviously he got that 4-4 pack against Fürth the week before. So, I mean, what a record that was. 6 league goals in what was 110 minutes at the time. But then, Ed, it just completely fell apart from 2-0, didn't it? What happened?
I mean, that's what you love about the Bundesliga, isn't it? This is just, and this is why you watch it. I just wish you could have had the full house. I think that would have, really just added to it, unfortunately. But no, I mean, so they give up the penalty to Patrick Schick, and then they storm down and pull one back almost immediately. And I think from there, the wind was just completely gone from Bayer Leverkusen. They were beaten as soon as they gave up that goal immediately. It only took them another 7 minutes to pull back level. So all of that work, I mean, Leverkusen were just flying from the start of the match. They were rampant. I mean, 5 minutes in, they're already up, and they're up 2 within 20. You saw the Eintracht Frankfurt side that you would have expected to see in previous seasons, where they were just that attacking machine and just, they still didn't even have the majority of the possession. I think it was Leverkusen who had almost 60% of the ball. They just took good shots. Almost half of their shots were on target, and Leverkusen just couldn't stop them when they came forward.
Yeah, good stuff. Really entertaining game, and maybe starting to see a few newer names that are now going to be Frankfurt heroes or first teamers that we see scoring goals and making an impact. Obviously, that kind of trio from last season that me and Mark obviously were always kind of singing their praises. In fact, obviously, it was the Silva, Kamada, and Kostic kind of trio, and it was just goals galore, and it was brilliant to watch. But now in the last few games, we've seen Jesper Lindström kind of come to the fore a bit more. He's got a couple of goals, and Jasic volleyed in his first Bundesliga goal, I think. So he has also got a bit more time on the pitch as a result. So made up for his odd handball by striking in a lovely 5th goal. Actually, one of the best of the weekend. But I think that probably goes to, I think it was Nico Dorsch's strike for Augsburg late in the game. That was a hell of a hit on that Friday night game. But Ed, do you think we'll now see a new kind of vision with Frankfurt and some kind of newer names to follow?
I do. I guess you just see kind of the system that Freddie Bobic built there. And so even though he left, it's not like all of that knowledge falls apart. At least that's what successful clubs do. If one person leaves, you still are able to fill the void. I was shocked to see them doing so poorly at the beginning of the season, that they were very much a better team. And it looks like they have finally gotten that sort of understanding that they needed to. And I would not want to play Frankfurt. in the next 2 matches for the winter break. And honestly, the winter break probably comes at a bad time for them, just as they are really starting to pick up steam.
Yeah, absolutely agreed.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, just one other comment as well, just before we move on to that. Yeah, obviously, our partnership with Bully News seems to be bearing fruits as well. Yeah, because Patriotic Harry said, yeah, had to report on it on Bully News as well. Yeah, couldn't have gotten a better game. Yeah, so yeah, good to see some of our kind of cross partnerships as well there with Bully News as well. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, let's. Rory, did you want to say something before we move on?
Yeah, no, I think that obviously sums it up quite nicely. Just about to say that we're kind of running over a little bit, so we'll maybe kind of save our talking point of the week that we were going to do and maybe do it in another show as we're kind of going over a little bit on time. It would have been kind of on the lines of Hoffenheim and their kind of run of form right now, but we can leave that for another show, and we'll have plenty of time to do some more kind of in-depth talks about our talking points of the week and different things like that as we go on. So that probably brings the show to a quite nice close and wrap. One thing to look out for is, of course, the midweek games that are coming flying at us from tomorrow, Wednesday. Full set of fixtures of Bundesliga action, so you're very lucky that they'll be coming our way. Me and Mark were kind of discussing a little bit about potentially doing a watch along, but we're not overly sure if we'll be able to kind of synchronize our diaries or indeed have the same game to watch live on TV, unfortunately. So we'll kind of let you know if we are able to do that. It'll be good fun trying to do a watch along at some point. If we don't do it midweek, we will do one soon, as we've never tried one before, and be interesting to see if everyone out there would enjoy that. But I think it's fair to say that it's been a really interesting show, actually, with you, Ed. So thank you very much for your time, giving it up again, like during a busy work day for yourself. It's been really interesting to have you on to talk a little bit about Hertha.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. There are a few things I love talking about more.
Yeah, great, yeah. So yeah, let's just close off the show. Like, obviously, if you enjoyed what you saw today, follow us on Twitter @OverTheBarFB and @OverTheBarExtra. Yeah, obviously check out our main site, which is obviously otbfootball.net. You can see everything we produce with Over the Bar on there. Also, we do a lot of written articles as well, which continue to come. You can find the written articles on just about any topic, basically, on the chat on the show. Yeah, also remember to follow the YouTube channel as well, because also we've not only got the Bundesliga, we've also got the English Football League 1 and League 2 show as well. So for some of you guys that like a bit of niche football from the lower leagues of the English pyramid, where my team is as well, Wigan Athletic. But yeah, remember to follow that as well. Check it out. I think it's every Wednesday and Thursday. But yeah, but we will see you again for the predictions ahead of what will be 17. Actually, next weekend is the last one before the winter break. Yeah, what are we going to do, Rory, for the next 3 weeks over the winter break?
Well, we'll just be constantly posting our Derby Day dive-ins. That's what we'll be doing. So don't worry, everyone. There'll be loads of content coming out from us. All the winter misery of not having Bundesliga football, we will fill the void. Don't you all worry. I think on Thursday's show we'll probably make it more of a review and prediction show if we can go through, especially if we don't do a watch along. So yeah, we'll do a bit of a review as well. Yeah, exactly. Just one more comment from up the Latics. Yeah, we got some other Wigan followers out there as well. Yeah, thanks for the appreciation on that one. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, yeah, thanks again to Ed for the show. And yeah, we'll see you again on Thursday. Thanks all. See you then.